Okay, so welcome aboard. I'm going to be doing a basic soldering tutorial. I'm going to show you how to solder some wires together. I'm going to show you how to solder a component with some of its headers on there. We'll get into the details of each one of those in a second, but first, before I get there, I want to get into some details of the tools I'm going to be using for soldering. First and foremost, you start off with a soldering iron. Purchase whatever you think is right. What I suggest is don't buy the cheap $9 one. I went to Home Depot and I felt out a few of these guys. This is the one that I like best. It heats up quickly. It cools down quickly. It's got a nice little switch on the top, toggle on and off. Green light, red light tells you on the top when it's ready. So right now it's red, so it tells you basically that it's not ready, it's not hot enough yet. When that turns green, that means it's hot enough. Also, the cable easily becomes detached for storage, so it's not just this big Mondo cable roll sitting in your toolbox. The other thing that I purchased is one of these guys. It's basically a stand for your soldering iron. As you can see, it's really nice, fits in there well. Now, as you notice, it's got this spring. This spring doesn't get that hot, but I wouldn't suggest touching it like I'm doing right now. I'm doing it because this soldering iron has not been sitting here for very long. The other part you'll notice, and also it's very weighted down, so that way it doesn't move around that much. The other part you'll notice is this is an actual sponge, and I'll take this out. Now, I didn't do this in this video, but what I actually do is every time I start to solder, I actually go and I moisten this into the sink, wring it out, make sure there's no excess water, and then put it right back in. The reason why is while you're soldering, sometimes you'll find that you'll need to clean your tips. And what I do is I just kind of quickly rub it against there. Especially in the beginning, I'll go ahead and I'll rub it against there to make sure I clean out any excess dirt or anything like that that might interfere with my actual soldering. Next things that you'll have, you can find one of these basic kits at Radio Shack or at the Home Depot. What I really find useful, I don't really use much of these things to tell you the truth, but what I find useful are the ones, there's one here that just has a tip. Now, I either use a hobby knife or I actually use this, and it's just very helpful. The other part that's kind of helpful sometimes is on this one here. It's got a flat tip. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but it's flat, and it's kind of got an edge to it, so it's kind of nice for scraping off things when you need to. Again, I don't do that much with this one. I use more of this one than anything else, especially when I'm working with little boards like this one here. I'm going to go ahead and put these away. We're not going to need them for our example. Also, this kit contains a little metal brush, which could also be useful. I've never had to use it, but again, this is an introductory tutorial, so we don't need to get into detail. One of the things you'll definitely need to have handy is a desoldering, I guess a bulb of some sort. You'll notice it's just got a hard plastic thing at the tip and then a rubber ball. What I found is I do use this sometimes for desoldering stuff. I haven't actually tried the more complicated ones. This one's worked out pretty well. Basically what I do is when I want to get the solder out, I go ahead and squeeze it, and I put it underneath the solder, I heat up the solder, and I literally just let go, and it will suck out the solder and just go in there. It's melted the tip a little bit, but it seems to be really resilient to the heat, so it's worked out pretty well. The other part that we're using for our example is just a basic wire stripper that I picked up at Home Depot again. Again, I would suggest getting a good set of wire strippers. There's nothing more frustrating than getting a bad set of wire strippers that's always cutting through your wire and not stripping the wire correctly. Spend the money, get something that's pretty good. And then I have a generic tool here that I just use just in case. It's basically one of those Leathermans or whatever they're called. It's a multi-purpose tool, folds up for you. This one's made by Husky. Again, I purchased this at Home Depot. Basic pliers, some knives, file, scissors, things like that. Just basic all-around stuff to make it convenient for me so I don't have to keep searching through my toolkit for things that I need. Lastly, the last bit of the actual, one of the last pieces is your actual solder. Now, I just, got ahead and got a regular electric solder from Radio Shack, nothing special. I just wanted to make sure that it was thin enough and I had plenty of it. So this seems to be really well, and the case itself serves as a little holder, so I just kind of pull it out as I need to, put it back in when I don't need to use that much. And one of the big things that you need to know, now, I guess as you get older in life, there's always some things that you need to have, and there's some inevitables. One of those being that your sight goes wrong. Goes bad. I don't know how old you are or what your eyes are like, but if you're like me, you're going to need to have a magnifying glass to get into boards like this. As you can see, I can barely hold this thing with my hands, and if I'm going to go ahead and solder this, it's going to be really challenging for me just holding it like this. It's nice to have it with clamps. Now this particular unit had 2 clamps. Here's one. The other one actually just broke off. So, but either way, I'm just going to work with one right now. In terms of magnification, there's one more piece that I might suggest you get. The more the merrier. Again, in my eyes, I can't see this type of stuff. So I actually have one of these guys that I picked up again at a local electronics store. Cost me $9. It's not the best of quality, but it always serves the purpose for me. Just strap it on. I get to see what I'm doing. And lastly, I have this little guy here, another magnification set. 3 different levels of magnification, and I usually use this for inspection. So after I'm done, I inspect what I'm doing with this thing. Again, you don't have to get all these things. It's just whatever's more convenient for you. I found that these are the things that are convenient for me. So let's get started. I'll start off by doing something with the actual component so we can get the more challenging thing out of the way. So what happens here, I'm going to kind of zoom into this. So pardon me for a second. Okay, so here we are. So, as you can see, we have a bunch of things here. So we're going to use these headers. Now we're only going to need 4 of these, and I'll show you why. If you look at this component right here, there's only 4 holes right there. Now this is a compass, an electronic compass, and it's using an I2C interface. Not sure if you can see it there, but that's the I2C. You have ground, voltage, SDA, SLC. These are all used for communicating with this device when you plug this into a microcontroller. Again, there's only 4, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and take off. I'm going to take off 4 from here. So that's where I come in with my pliers, and I literally just select 4 and snap it off, and I have 4. So that's it. Now what you'll see quickly, is how easily this will just set in. You got this component here, and you got the headers here. So if you just watch, this slides right in there, and there you go. You're done. But that's not the challenge. The challenging part is positioning this so that this board and this stays perfectly perpendicular, as well as stays seated in this. So what I do in this scenario, I move some things out of the way, is I bring in the magnification stand that I have, magnifying station that I have, with the alligator clip. Now, let me kind of zoom out here for a moment. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to position this with this guy here in such a way so that I can easily solder this together. Now what I usually do is I try to clamp it so that I hold down the header pin against the actual board. So there you have it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but let me go ahead and bring it closer to you so you can see exactly how it's held. So you can see I'm using these alligator clips to hold what I'm doing. Now, I ask those of you in the community that are better at soldering than I am to go ahead and critique what I'm doing here if I'm doing something wrong, but so far I've done a lot of robotic kits and I've done a lot of soldering, and I haven't had a problem doing it this way. So if by any chance I do or will have a problem doing this, please let me know. So let's see if I can position this so that you can easily see what I'm doing. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to start soldering. So I learned a lot of little